Hello, I've got your energy stories for the third week of January 2022. Last week we reported on the aggressive climate goals contained in New York's State of State address. This week we turn to California's most recent budget proposal, which includes $22 billion in new climate-related funding added to resources from last year's budget, creates a total pot of $37 billion on climate spending over the coming 6 years. There's a large focus on equity, addressing needs of low-income and minority communities most affected by impacts of changing climate. And a few items include $6.1 billion to foster clean transportation, especially in disadvantaged communities, close to $1 billion to push gas out of buildings, largely through heat pumps and induction cooktops, and $2 billion to push clean energy technologies on the grid, especially long-duration storage, which nets $380 million, and $100 million for green hydrogen. The budget also provides for $100 million in tax credits for companies developing clean energy tech. Well, the Electric Power Research Institute, EPRI, noted last week that in order to successfully address the Biden administration's carbon reduction goals, the grid would have to essentially triple from meeting about 20% of total overall energy needs in the U.S. to about 60% by 2050. Pushing gas out of the equation here will require a heavy lift, as will transitioning transportation from gasoline and diesel over to the electron. So not only do we have to focus on decarbonizing the grid, we have to grow it 3x. That's going to be a heavy lift. Researchers at Stanford University and the DOE SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory recently discovered a method to extend the life of lithium-ion batteries by as much as a third. As today's batteries cycle, islands of lithium in the battery become isolated from the electrodes and then no longer useful. These orphaned lithium islands can be steered back towards the electrodes, reestablishing an electrical connection with this new technology. Will it become commercially viable? Who knows? Among other issues may be increased instability and fire risk. But there are literally dozens of similar announced gains in the materials science battery area that all point to better battery tech in the not too distant future. Looking at EVs, GM's EV business had a really rough quarter, largely owing to the impacts of the massive Bolt recall that slowed its overall progress. How bad was it? Well, let's see. There are just over 90 days in the quarter, so GM sold less than an average of 1/3 EV per day, totaling 26. Of course, one puckish observer tweeted, "Room to improve." That Elon Musk doesn't miss a trick. There was a single first Hummer in that mix. And now that the dust has settled, we've got some EV tallies from across the world for all of 2021. U.S. sales look like about 647,000, both battery electric and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, up 103% from last year and representing some 4.3% of the almost 15 million total light vehicles sold. That aforementioned Elon Musk, well, he sold over half of those electric vehicles. 19 new models entered the fray last year, though about half of them were only available in the last few months. The US did okay, but China rocked it at about 3.3 million pure EVs and hybrid plug-ins, an estimated 15.7% of all vehicles sold in the country. 505,000 were sold in December alone. And that aforementioned Mr. Musk's company, yeah, he was behind BYD, who sold 594,000. Tesla sold 473,000. Meanwhile, Norway led the whole country sweeps on a percentage basis at 86% of all cars sold in 2021. Switching to the ocean, the U.S. Department of Interior announced a wind auction next month for over 488,000 acres off of New York and New Jersey, with a potential of between 5.6 to 7 gigawatts of total capacity. Our last story is an interesting one. Canadian compressed air storage company Hydrostor. It's a company that excavates purpose-built caves and then associated reservoirs of water. It fills up the cave with compressed air underneath the water, offering a storage solution that gives you about 8 hours of duration. Well, it garnered a $250 million investment from Goldman Sachs' private equity side. Well, thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.